Good evening everyone, and welcome to the Medical Quidlum Society. Today, Tuesday, February 4, 2015, we are welcoming Comrade Davison Borges. Davison is from the Centro de Renovação Espiritual de Spiritist house in the city of São Paulo, and today he brings some reflections on how to deal with life setbacks. You are very welcome, and we will now hand over the floor to Michelle, who will do the initial reading, prayer, and then we will begin the talk. Thank you. Thank you, Aline. Good evening, David. Good evening to everyone in the virtual and face-to-face world. So we're going to read a chapter here from For the Human Spirit, right? So here we go. Chapter 26. Immediate Work. Naturally, within the framework of fair possibilities, no one should deny support or assistance to comrades who sign from afar with reasonable requests. However, it is our duty to heed the teachings of some creatures who indulge in the voluptuous restlessness of worrying about nefarious events, planned by the sick minds of others and which will probably never happen, wasting a lot of time prescribing formulas for action or uttering useless regrets. Other people's crops and future events always require a great deal of forethought. What's more, it's essential to recognize that the difficult problem at our side or at a distance from us has the purpose of enriching our own experience, enabling us to solve the most intricate puzzles along the way. This is why Simon Peter's note is profound and timely for all times and situations. Let's heed the imperatives of divine service, which is located in our individual landscape, not through constraints, but through spontaneous goodwill, increasingly eschewing our particularistic interests and from a firm and ready mind to serve the good, as much as we can. Sometimes it's reasonable to worry about the world situation, the regeneration of communities, the positions and responsibilities of others. But it's not fair to forget God's flock among us. So, at this moment, may we tune in to the environment. Already prepared for today's work, for today's lecture, may we tune in from above, absorbing these lights that are now in the environment, illuminating our minds and hearts, helping us to absorb the information that will be said, that will be taught by our brother Davison. Bless Father also our brother speaker today, so that he may have an easy verb and logical reasoning, and so that Father we may all be on the same wavelength and wonderfully participate in this atmosphere of love. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. After this prayer, may we all be aligned with Jesus' thinking, right? So that we can take these setbacks in life a little easier, right? Let's start with a little. When his father had many possessions, When he turned 18, every young person wanted to get his license. In Brazil it's 18, right? He was going to get his license and his car. His father was well off and bought him a car. He liked to travel in the mountains, run a lot, like all young people, right? Running through the mountains, in the curves of the mountains. And so he always did. One day, he was already at high speed. On a bend in the mountains, he passed the bend and a car came almost from the opposite direction. He went one way, the car went. He went another way, the car went too. I know that one day they passed the window. And when he passed the window, the person in the other car said, "Donkey." He was like, wow, what an offense. He came almost in the opposite direction and I, who am dumb, in a flash, in seconds, he put his head out and said, "You're dumb." He turned and continued. Just after this bend, right at the end of the bend, what was in the way? A donkey. And then he saw it, braked, turned one way, turned the other, almost ran over it, almost hit the animal. Right? So this little story, huh? It often shows us that when we often think it's a situation, sometimes people even want to help us, but think it's a negative situation, right? Sometimes people aren't being that way with us, they're even being positive, wanting to help us. So we often take a dim view of everything, right? Don't stop to understand. There are several. And one William, a musician, right? And a jiu-jitsu fighter and another guy who was also on the internet, who I picked up there, called Daniel, also a successful businessman, who ran, at a certain point in their lives, coming out of adolescence, young, they met drugs and ended up sinking into this life, right? And then, when they managed to recover, they went out, they came back athletes and athletes taught people who were in incidents or wanting to get off drugs. Then you can see. If she's going to overcome the difficulty or not. We have the story of another boy from São Bernardo too, Daniel. We had the chance to talk to him 2 or 3 times. He was a physical education teacher, he trained, he walked in the sea, he ran. Almost an athlete too, right? But he took part in major competitions. He started when he was about 26, 28 years old, with a disease called multiple sclerosis, which paralyzes the whole body. There is no cure. And at one point he even stayed in bed, right? And when he reached that point in his life, he said, "No, I need to change my life." The doctors say there's no cure, but he's changed his life. He's done several things, including moving to Santos, to have a quieter life, by the beach, living alone, breaking off his engagement, because he needed to rebuild his life, changing his eating habits, his lifestyle. He started walking again, running again, swimming in the sea again with his movements. And 5 years ago, the last time I spoke to him, he was out of crisis. So the doctors are studying his case, which is how he can, without medication, not have a crisis. So, look at all the people who overcome and who live day by day, fall down and get up. So today's gospel invites us, saying, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the hungry and those who thirst for justice, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are those who suffer persecution for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." It's there in Matthew chapter 5, verses 4 to 10. So, these examples that we have given of overcoming, André Luiz said a few things about our attitudes and our feelings. He talks about the bitter memory. Bitter memories can't fix the past. We keep remembering the bad things, massaging our thoughts, our bodies, right? With these bad thoughts, we remember that Hanna-Barbera cartoon, with Leon Lippi and Aina, and then Anaheim always complained about everything. Oh heavens, oh bad luck, oh pain, nothing is going to work out today. Nothing worked. So when you start to be bitter, you're not going to make amends for the past, and you're not going to have a very good present either. Because like attracts like, if we're bitter, we'll attract bad energy too. Another item is that he feels sadness. It won't bring light to our thoughts. It's not going to improve our lives. Our energy is going to be bad, and when we're sad, what we do usually allows unhappy spirits, called obsessors, to approach us. So that doesn't get us anywhere either. Disenchantment itself, he says, doesn't help us to help anyone, not even ourselves. It only really worsens our energetic condition, for our body, for our faith, for our soul. Bitterness is the same thing. Then we push people away with these items here. We're giving off bitterness and we commit destructive energy to our own bodies. Then we get sick. We don't know why. He talks about revolt too. Revolt won't do. We'll see a fair, good path. We'll see these paths be turned around. After I graduated in engineering from FAE, I spent 2-3 years working in my company, without vacations. Then I managed to take some vacations, already with a small child, 2 small children. I went on a trip, stopped halfway, 100 kilometers away. My father in Campinas, my big angel from Campinas. He was playing, my eldest son was playing, at the age of 6, playing with a little friend. He broke his leg in 2 places. Well, let's carry on. We were going to the new girl's house, a longer journey, 500 or 600 kilometers. When I spied my cousin in the middle of the road, the glass box in his bathroom burst and I cut the nerves in my hand. It was no longer possible to come and go. I'm back in Sao Paulo, right? I said, what a vacation, spending it at home, right? And then we were like, wow, so long working. The first vacation I go on with the family, to a nice place, I couldn't even get there. I enjoyed it for a year. Then an opportunity to talk for an hour and a half, I don't remember when exactly, enjoying it, right? I said, gee, why did it go wrong? Why did it go wrong? The spiritual said, do you know this revolt you're having inside you? We stopped you because something worse was going to happen in the middle of the road. So, little slips happened in your life now, at this moment, because you weren't supposed to move on. It wouldn't be good. I got a spiritual earful and shut up. I didn't complain anymore, did I? That we have to remember these facts that were unpleasant for us. So when we criticize, see things in a bad light, we become rooted in that, in our thoughts and feelings, and we can't detach ourselves from it. When you criticize others too, you start to distance yourself from them. But Jesus said, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. So, as we are also fallible, limited people, so are others. Can we criticize the first phase of Paul's life as a Christian persecutor? Or those coaches we talked about who were former addicts and now help people in the same condition as they used to? Can we criticize these people? So, this criticism stuff, right? Our own irritation always leads us to failure. If you're very angry, things don't work out. And you get angrier because people don't work out, because that's what he's thinking, what he's feeling, what he's betraying. So what we do with our physical and mental energies will either solve our problems or hinder them even more. This irritation. You've had the opportunity to see, it's even on the internet, people who are irritated, or who hate the person. The energies get stronger intertwining with the people we don't like, or with the irritation, but it's a strong energy, but an energy that looks like rays, disordered, an ugly thing. It's not a beautiful thing, a light, sparkling, beautiful. So we have several things to work on, right? Intolerance itself actually alienates us, it makes us nice people. We have several examples of this. History itself shows us. Why was Jesus so persecuted, Christians persecuted? Because what Jesus promised, the kingdom of heaven, inner transformation, peace, hope, attracted more believers. Because the Jews there, the doctors of the law, in the law of Moses said, look, you have to pay your penance, you have to bring it, if you don't bring it, it's bad, you're going to be bad with God, you have to do this, you have to do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And he slaughtered the person, and when he made a mistake, he even had a predilection for death. So, of course, who would attract more believers? The doctrine of Jesus. And the intolerance of the Jews? He chased her to her death. So intolerance today keeps us away from good things. And we understand about me. So, all these emotions, resentment, to cut a long story short, right? Resentment, condemning others, right? The very story of Paul, which I'm quoting now, condemns Paul. If you had convicted him, what would it have been? The greatest promoter of Christianity at the time for all believers. So when we report, right, in the Spirit's book, question 83, what problems do we have in our lives and who is to blame? Spirits respond to problems, right? Who's to blame? It's from society. Society is responsible for the moral education of its members. But in the end, it's always our fault. It's us who act, think, feel. So it's up to us to create the opportunities in our lives, or not. It is we who stifle our good or bad tendencies. So it all depends on us. And it's always our fault, there's no escaping it. If we're complaining about life, complaining about our wife, complaining about our son, who married this woman, this husband, we chose it, we can't complain. The son, the way he is, we raised. Sometimes there are trends that attract the spirit, which are also difficult, right? But we raised them, we educated them, so we can't complain either. And then, since we're young within the Spiritist doctrine, we get the justice of afflictions in 3. Why do some suffer more than others? And the answer is again, right? Because we often do things that cause us problems down the line. If we had often looked back, if I hadn't acted on this, done that, I wouldn't be in this situation today. So the cause of the problems is always us. What we plant, we reap. The actual causes of our afflictions are sometimes not our fault. For example, when you're the victim of something, right? For example, disappointments that life sometimes brings us, people we've lost, loved ones. So this is part not of this life, but of what we planted in other lives and are reaping now. Is also part of life. Everything is fine with spirituality. We have to learn something from this. But apart from the problems of the warm processes within life, we have something that causes us to have an effect, right? Effect, law of cause and effect. Which is the effect? Cessation of causes, cessation of effects. And what is this cause? Our mental creations, the feelings and thoughts we exercise every day of our lives. And they have consequences. So, if we are co-creators, as the spirits say, we are co-creators, we create situations over the course of a week, 2, a month, a year, because we think about exactly that over and over again. And sometimes we put more emotion into it. When we do that, it's the cause. We'll see the effect up front. We will attract, materialize problems, things, for ourselves. Now, what we often think is, okay, I was to blame for the situations I'm facing. But whose feelings, whose thoughts? They're ours. Who controls this? Ourselves. But the process, man, these are also acts, attitudes and feelings that we planted back then, we're choosing, we can change. It's not like that, it's a punishment, you have to pay it until the end. Everything is relative. So we can change everything. And many times we realize that we've made a mistake. We don't have to blame ourselves, criticize ourselves in a punitive way, feel sorry or suffer for it. Correct it that way. And he corrects, without problems, without guilt, without regrets, without suffering. That won't help us, it won't help us either. So, when we start to change our attitudes in this life, we start to change the situations in our life, and we will reap the rewards. Chico Xavier used to say that we can't do anything about the past, but I can plant a new moment now, a new situation in order to grow, in order to have a better performance in my life in the future, in every sense. And when we talk about the processes of life, suffering, problems, in the Spirit's instructions, item 18, there is good and evil that belongs to them. It doesn't say that we have to suffer this affliction. We have to learn to suffer our trials calmly, to endure them well, so that we can really enter the kingdom of God, as Jesus said, right? What do we have to do to withstand these tests? We often wonder what we can do to prove ourselves. We're in the transition phase, right? But we're still at that stage. So how can we withstand this evidence? What should we do? Creating new habits, getting rid of problems and getting rid of some of the negative attitudes we have towards things in life. Just like that story about the boy running around the bend, he heard a stupid word and thought he was being cursed at. He was the one who frightened the sight of an animal in front of him, right? So, to change attitudes, to see all of life's good and bad situations in a different light. Spirituality always speaks to us, right? Everything gives thanks, it's in the gospel. We have everything to be grateful for, even the bad things. Yes, there are often things for the good. Look at my situation there, when I was angry for a year and a half, right? With the spiritual plane, right? It's a negative situation, but it prevented a bigger problem down the line, according to what the spiritual plane says. I don't know what it would be, but it prevented a bigger problem. So, change of habits. We want to be healthy, we need to change our routine and eat healthier, avoid gluttony. So, do we know our body? Do we know what it really needs to eat and be healthy? We read a bit, we study, we don't need to take a course in food at university. But we need to know what we're eating. Especially processed foods, there's so much in there that you don't know what it is. Many are carcinogenic, many are allergenic. So how can we be healthy, if we don't change our attitude? And try to know what we're putting into ourselves. Diseases also have to do with health, with diet and with physical exercise. They recently discovered a hormone called exertin. It improves everything in our body. It's found in everything in our body. That's why we get discouraged, do a workout, wow, after a while we feel good. It produces endorphins. It gives us pleasure, well-being. Science says that even taking care of our physical body, exercising, there are blue areas on the planet that they talk about. One of the items they talk about for the longevity and health of many people in these areas, one of them is physical exercise, every day. Move your body. Stagnant water rods. Our still bodies are also getting old and bad. The spirit needs a good body to manifest itself well. We also have to read good books. Unfortunately, in the Spiritist doctrine, we ask ourselves, who has read all of Kardec's lessons? It's a minority. So, go and read Kardec's lessons, and Kardec himself said, aim and instruct yourselves. So if we start to change these habits and get to know more, Jesus said, know the truth and it will deceive you. Knowing more, reading more, we'll be able to improve our lives. To understand more, to know ourselves more. Changing some attitudes that lead to suffering. And this suffering often has to do with mental vigilance and the vigilance of feelings. Maintaining good thoughts and feelings is the first way for our lives to begin to change, so that we can enter the so-called kingdom of heaven, which is within us, as Jesus said. So, if we improve our mental alertness, our feelings, our thoughts, we start to produce good things, good energies, and life will attract similar things to us. So it's quite a complicated process, because it's difficult to maintain that mental vigilance all the time. Are we going to slip? We often go. But it's natural. Sister Sidufo says that we have to live with our inner shadows, so are we going to have bad times? Wow, I thought about that person, that situation, right? Normal. It is no longer moving forward. You think a bad thing, but you don't put it into practice. It's already an evolution. So don't beat yourself up about it, because we're not imperfect and we will be in time to come. We have to start changing our lives, looking for new hobbies, doing what we like. We work, live for the family, with commitment. But what about us? When we're exhausted, tired, we don't produce anything properly. No, but we do what we like. Outside of work, outside of the other spirit, we have to have some healthy habits, do what we like so that we can feel happy too. Another thing that spirituality talks about is meditation, or for us it would also be prayer. Doing breathing exercises, meditating, praying, because in the stress of everyday life on the planet we live on, we have to stop for a while to be able to look inside. At another item, well-defined goals in life. We want to change our lives, face our problems and change our lifestyle, our lives. We have to have well-defined goals in life, both material and spiritual. Why not? Napoleon Hill, he did research many years ago. At Carnegie's request, he went to research what these people had in common, the ones who achieved successful goals. People who don't have a goal to grow, to get to know themselves, to study Spiritist doctrine, to do anything else in life, even at work, don't grow enough. And then we exercise a bit of faith too. When we have a goal, we exercise a bit of faith. I'm going to make it, I can, I believe that everything will work out. We get discouraged at the first difficulties, so we have to change these lifestyle habits, because everything passes. Exercise faith and trust in yourself. In the Gospel, the Spiritist Lord speaks of divine faith and human faith. Human faith, we need to practice it more, trust in ourselves, don't get discouraged, especially as we get older. Let's get discouraged, we continue to achieve, to have goals and to seek our own happiness, that of others, right? If we get discouraged in the middle of the road, Emmanuel tells us, the inattentive farmer almost always listens to the suggestions of tiredness. Are we getting tired in life? So Emmanuel opens us up here, okay, be careful not to give in to tiredness. They weaken our own physical, mental and spiritual strength. This discouragement eats away at our physical strength. We have cases of Alcotra's Anonymous, right? In Brazil, in the world, they have one word, 24 hours of sobriety. They fight for those 24 hours to be good. Don't fall into drink, don't fall into drugs, so we have to fight 24 hours a day to trust. In the providence of life, despite all the things that can happen along the way, that discourage us, that bring us down. Trust in divine providence, and what's happening is what's best for us. And pursue these challenges, look for the good in ourselves. To finish, let's take the story of one person, shall we? From a young age, he had trouble with jobs. He was a young man who had all the reasons, all the jobs didn't work out. He'd been fired from several jobs because of problems, right? He looked like a troubled young man. He also lost the hearing of one of the listeners at the age of 12, Scarlatino, and the other was damaged too, so, right? I had these problems, didn't I? He's young, you say, that's not going to do anything in life. That young man was Thomas Edison. He caused problems, he did, because he was very so, as he himself said, genius is 1% inspiration and 94% perspiration. If we want to grow in life, learn to apply the gospel in our lives, we need to sweat a little. Look inside yourself and say, what do I need to change to face this problem? To get over it. Like Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb, it took more than 6,000 different materials, 1,200 attempts, and the advisors, he said, say this, I've tried so many times, it didn't work, he said, I just know that this is one more way that it doesn't work, that it's wrong, I'll find it right, let it go. Socrates himself used to say that it's not just those who do nothing that dare, but also those who could make better use of their time. So let's spend our time better, helping ourselves, getting to know ourselves, improving ourselves, looking at life's problems as challenges to be overcome and inspired. We'll always manage to overcome these problems. We'll find a way, with calm, with perseverance, with trust in divine providence, trust, faith in ourselves. And Jesus said, he who perseveres to the end, we can. If we have the case of the young Daniel, who overcame an incurable disease by changing his habits, changing his mind, his emotions, his feelings and his way of life, taking the stress out of his life. So this leads us to believe that we can all change, we can overcome any situation in life. It depends solely on us, our goodwill. And God bless us all. Thank you, Davison. Can you finish with the prayer? Yes, I will. So let's once again raise our thoughts to Jesus, to our spiritual mentors, to the Lord and to the Lord of God. May we once again this evening seek the strength, the faith in ourselves, in spirituality, to walk here on this planet, overcoming all the problems along the way. Give us strength, faith and hope. May we become an instrument of peace and light, an instrument of His peace here on earth, setting an example of goodwill towards the good things in life, an example to all and faith and hope. May we walk the earth with the learner of the gospel, but also with the one who can teach something good to another human being. And every day we can improve ourselves a little, complain less, do more, so that we can become a spirit full of light. A spirit that complains less about life and accomplishes more. And believe that we were created in the image and likeness of God, that we are goddesses. And we can accomplish everything in this life. So be it. Thank God. Thank God for that. One more. Participation, and we're counting on your affection. Just talk next time. Thank you, everyone.